Just to let you know, on my journey here, I didn't drive because the traffic's so bad over the last couple of days. I walked along the local roads in Southall Green and I photographed 7 separate fly tips. And yeah, it's just a constant in this area. It's daily. There's no escape from it. So obviously we are all from, different backgrounds, different experiences. Hi, can you sign the register and take a seat when you're ready? But the important thing is there should be a safe space for sharing, but also listening to the people giving presentations. And what I would ask is just to listen to their presentation, and then there'll be space at the end for a Q&A. So we hope that this is a very civil meeting and respectful. And just to say, it's not a moan and groan session. I'm well aware that some people think these meetings are a waste of time, but we really want to focus on resident-led proposals, which Ealing Council don't seem to be exploring at the present time. Just to let you know, obviously there's a fire exit over there, and obviously where you came in is also a fire exit. Again, by the entrance, there's a toilet. And, if you feel the need to leave early or this meeting is not meeting your expectations, we're more than happy for you to do that. We would just ask if you could leave quietly. So Artie was going to be the first speaker. Unfortunately, she's not here yet, but whenever she arrives, we'll just slot her in. So first of all, we're going to have Suki Floria talking about his proposals to reduce fly tipping. And I think Suki has found just approaching the council on his own, he's just been battered away. And I don't know if any of you have had this experience. You've sent an email and you don't get a response, or if you do get a response, it's months down the line. And it seems as though the response is just kind of like a copy and paste of a response to somebody else. And I know this because we've shared information on the responses. I said, well, yeah, that's virtually the same as the response I received. So you've probably sensed or experienced on social media, lots of people are now complaining about the fly tipping. It's really getting, I would say, out of hand, out of control. And I would say there's been an explosion in it in the last 3 or 4 years after COVID ended. And personally, I have not seen Southall look as bad as this, as what it looks like. Sorry, as what it looks like now. When I first moved to Southall 20 years ago, there was some fly tipping, so it wasn't perfect. But the way that I see fly tipping really brazen on the pavements, blocking pavements for wheelchair users like Shaquille, Patrick's son, and Artie. I mean, I walked past a mattress today and it was completely blocking the pavement. You had to walk on the road to go around it. So, this for me is kind of like really unprecedented. And I don't know if anybody's seen yet bottles of urine. Yeah, I've seen bottles of urine as part of what's been dumped on the pavement. What next? Where is it going to end? So after Suki, we have Rahul Puri. He is a local pharmacist from Puri Pharmacy. Do you want to take a seat?
No,
yeah. And he's going to be talking about the health impacts. And it's something that I think the council really sort of skirts around, and the local MP. She talked about fly tipping being an embarrassment. Well, it's much more than that. It's actually dangerous. And certainly people won't be happy if there's an increase in rats. We've all heard about Birmingham, seeing the streets of Birmingham. Sometimes I see photographs of Birmingham, I think that looks like Southall, to be honest. Who wants to be paying for pest control because of other people's behaviour, because they don't want to pay for their rubbish to be collected? And then we have Joe. He is chair of Southall Residents Alliance, and basically he's going to join together the dots about the managed decline of Southall, because you can see all the towers around the station, and there's money coming into Southall from the property developers, But at the end of the day, if you look beyond, for example, the gasworks development, everywhere looks grim, filthy, and basically a slum. Even though it's my home, that's what I am now calling it. So he'll be talking about, the managed decline of Southall and the closure of the children's centres. We're going to welcome Artie. Artie, welcome.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. Are you able to put yourself here?
I'll come through. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it's quite small in here. Artie, do you want to be...
I'll reverse myself.
Yeah. Do you want to go first still, or do you want to
Okay. Yeah, that's
be changed in the order?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Artie, no doubt. Thank you for Artie's mum pushing it, because Artie is somebody I would normally bring to the meeting, but you've all probably seen the traffic out there. I said, Artie, I'm really sorry, I can't give you a lift because I don't know whether it's going to take 2 hours from home. God knows, it's so unpredictable. It's just bumper to bumper, everybody's tooting their horns, nobody's moving. So I was going to be there, but Mum, appreciate you giving up your evening to come along, and I'm sure you will want to contribute because you too are affected by the dumping on the streets. And it's important, as well as sharing experiences, that we look at what can we do to move this forward? What can we do to be a force to be reckoned with? Because all Ealing Council does is just sort of bat us away when we make individual complaints. They're not taking us seriously. So, Artie, whenever you're ready. Yeah, so welcome, Artie. Thank you for agreeing to speak about your experiences. And
Hi guys, good evening. Sorry for turning up.
no, well, we all know what the traffic's like out there, and walking along these. And also, when you get people walking from the station, it's so difficult. They're going home and you're going in the opposite direction. So thank you.
Artie, can I put that?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
So, good evening, everyone. Firstly, I would like to say a big thank you to you all for being here and listening to us today. Secondly, before I carry on and forget, I want to point out a very important person, Angela Fonzo. Thank you so much for making this meeting happen, and for all the hard work you have committed in putting fly tipping to an end. Angela has shared awareness by posting images, videos, posts to get the right people's attention and making sure it was based on matters around fly tipping. Thirdly, how can I forget and overlook all the supporters online who have done just as much as work to show in this. Now let me introduce myself. My name is Artie Dasani and I am 31 years old. I have a type of muscular dystrophy called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. When needing to go out, I need to use my manual wheelchair as my balance is quite bad and I get very unsteady on my feet. Fly tipping has made my outings a nightmare. Unfortunately, there are many barriers I face when needing to go out, since there is hardly any footpath space left for me to actually use because of all the rubbish that is left on it, such as torn black bags with food and old unclean food containers as well, and it's just all coming out of there. old clothing just overflowing from the bags and on the floor. And then we have toys that are just broken, left on the side, and my wheels, they get stuck on that. So that is also just as bad, because it's hard to get someone to come in and do a repair, and I use this wheelchair daily. And the worst has been when I see mattresses, couches, bed frames, and worst of all, kitchen appliances. I have had enough of it. Social anxiety is something I suffer with quite a lot. I regret to say that now I actually purposely stay indoors as much as possible because of the mess that fly tipping has created in my community. When needing to go out, all the barriers I face pop up in my head. I haven't even left the house yet and they're all there, just keep on going round and round. It's so exhausting. These barriers make me feel extremely frustrated and very anxious, in where I just want to go back to my safe place, which is my home. I end up actually getting so anxious that it makes me angry, and I take it out on the people that are just trying to help me and support me when my anxiety gets the better of me in the public, my mum and my sisters. My mum, thank you mum, is my main carer, and so without her I would not be able to do anything. She is the one who encourages me to go out and face my fears. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to use my manual wheelchair due to the weaknesses in my hands, as she helps to push me in it. I hate going out now, but when I have local appointments, I don't really have a choice, but I have to attend them. And these days, it's so hard to get an appointment. If you say you can't get to one, they tell you 4 to 6 weeks. That's not something I can wait with the health conditions I have. It makes me extremely anxious. I get scared that when passing all the rubbish, I will see rodents or even a rat running, and just rodents running past a rat, or a phobia that I have of rats. It just makes me so anxious yet again. I have to use the main road and roads used by vehicles instead of pavements, because the rubbish takes up the whole pavement. Because of the rubbish that takes up the whole pavement, it then if it doesn't scream danger to you in your head, I don't know what it can. At times I get so anxious about the unexpected car speeding behind me or coming in front of me, people just staring at me when I'm on the roads. It makes us look like we're mad, just going on the roads as if the pedestrian pavements are not usable. Then there's people in the cars horning at us, individuals from the car saying it's not safe, go use the pavements. But unfortunately, although they are correct and have a point, I am unable to use the provided pathways, which should be for all pedestrians, not just me. When I see rubbish or random pictures of places where I've seen rubbish, I just think, and Angela comes to my head, and it ingrains me in my head that to take a picture and to send it to the great people who are meant to be seeing this, so that I can get a sense of responsibility. So thank you for that, Angela, as well. I have battled with my confidence for many years now, and the issues that fly tipping and people's ignorance around it has made me want to give up on being independent, full stop. I don't think that this is just an issue for disabled people. I'm sure the elderly and many others who are out there in our community feel the same way. This is a universal problem that needs to be addressed as soon as possible, in fact. Because I'm worried it will get so worse before the steps are actually taken. I hope that this meeting shares all the awareness we have worked on as a community, may I say, and bring us justice to make sure that the word is heard, and finally to get the support to keep our streets clean. Thank you. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Artie. Do we have any questions for Artie? Okay, but thank you, because that takes a lot to share personal experiences, and it was very emotive, and it really touched my heart. And because you are my friend, you have given me quite an insight into the barriers that disabled people face. So thank you very much.
Thank you for, actually Angela's really has helped with me and the fly tipping. I think she's the one who helped with me actually to have the confidence to even say what I have said today. So if it wasn't for her, then I don't know what I would do. So Angela, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, from me and my family, we are very thankful for you.
Thank you for taking it.
Hi.
When you say that you do have to move out onto the road sometimes to get around obstacles, I presume there aren't drop curbs everywhere to get you onto the road, and then to once you're on the road to get you back onto the pavement.
So there's no drop curbs. Even in my local where I stay, there's only one drop curb for me to get onto the actual road to get towards bus stops. So me and my mum, well, my mum mostly, we have to reverse on the road and then reverse back which way. We don't know where we're going, where the cars are coming. She can't look behind. I'm trying to look I'm being partially blind. So I'm trying to look like what's the right places, and there's just people staring. They won't help and guide you like, okay, you know what, just be careful, give us a second, we'll stop the car. No, it's just ignorance. And there's no drop curbs, you're right, there isn't. There's no support for that. And I have put it out to my council and the housing a year ago, in fact, actually, and they've not done nothing about the pavements either, about, you know, the little bumps where the wheels get stuck in there. It honestly, it stops the wheelchair and it jolts it. So it's almost as if, you know, if I didn't have a belt, for example, I could actually fall out, you know. So it's very, very dangerous. So I'm glad you could point that out as well.
And as an able-bodied person, I mean, I don't have to step out into the road as often as you do, probably, because I can maneuver my way around things
Absolutely,
sometimes.
yeah.
But I don't want to step out into a road either. At least when I do, I can get back onto the pavement really quickly. So
Yeah, thank you.
Artie.
Thank you very much.
I have to
Yes.
see how this is going
Let's
on.
clip.
Yeah, thank you. Are you able to get one to sit next to me?
How'd you put it on? You done?
Okay, so I'd like to introduce Suki Florio, and he is going to talk about his proposals for really tackling fly tipping in a robust way. Over to you, Suki.
Thank you, guys. Like most of you, I'm a local resident. I'd just like to kind of start off. I don't have an affiliation with any party. And I kind of came upon this journey about 18 months ago when I was walking down and I saw how much fly tipping there was. First, I thought it was a one-off, right? So I thought, let it go. And then it became almost a kind of daily occurrence. So I thought, okay, and I think the turning point was when I saw a group of kids on Western Road going to school in the morning, and the bus stop was just filled up with rubbish. and obviously all kids are the same. And then I kind of took it upon myself to try and investigate, why is it gone so bad? So what I'll be doing today is, from the information I've had, and this is kind of a collection of 18 months of information from the council, from the enforcement people, from our councillors, to kind of really break down and make sure that everyone is aligned on, it's also for educational, some of it might be comical. So what I'll do is I'll kind of just go through each and every slide. Some of what Artie's covered and what Rahul may cover, I might just kind of quickly skip through. But afterwards, I kind of welcome any questions, right? So let's just move on to the next one. So what we have is basically, these are the images that we see, right? This is like the image that we see on Western Road.
Is it okay if we turn the lights off?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So when our kids are going to school or we're going to work, this is what we are seeing on the bus stop. When we're going to work, like rubbish piled up next to a car. Getting up for work is bad enough. Clearing up bin bags is even more challenging. And this is what we witness. And this is almost on a daily basis. Right. And now, obviously, we come across broken pieces of glass, furniture, mattress. I've seen, you can't even take, your parents out, because they're like, we don't want to go out. It just puts them off, which is kind of like, has other, mental benefit, affects them mentally. And then also, it's a kind of a criminal offence to kind of do this. So I'm not sure why people do it, but there we are. So basically, this is what I've kind of found out. How do bad practices occur? So something's gone wrong somewhere, right? So bad practices often occur, when you have maybe road landlords, careless tenants. There's no, from my understanding and my communications with the council, now we're all kind of partly to blame for this because we've elected people, right? And this is quite serious. So our councillors, and I never knew we had a ward councillor. I actually never knew. So my first point of call was, well, you need to call your councillor, and I thought it was the MP. So I called the MP, obviously no response. Then I located my ward councillor. And from that point on, I've kind of found out we've voted for people blindly, and we've voted for people to represent us, right, in a council meeting. But these people can't communicate. They're unable to communicate. They can't articulate, right? And they cannot escalate our issues. So when you combine those three, right, we have, they represent us, but how can they represent us if they cannot carry out these simple three tasks, right? That should be a red flag. 2 years, right? So 18 months ago when I contacted my councillor, I've spoken to many of them. I've communicated with Ealing Council to find out what they were going to do. And they were kind of writing back to me. And then I found out information that they've removed cameras from hotspots, deployed them somewhere else, where that area is now full of rubbish. I don't know why they've done that. When you question them further, you kind of find out that they don't really know how to tackle the problem. They just don't have a clue, right? And this is why, this is why the situation has gone so bad. I think last year they only issued 100 fines. That was last year, right? So there's been a lack of enforcement as well, and we're going to come on to that. So this is the current approach that they use, yeah? I'll read it out. So someone dumps rubbish, someone reports it, and then that gets collected. It's a failed strategy, and that's obviously come at a cost. That's increasing our council tax. So the problem at source isn't getting solved. It's just about someone reports it, someone collects it, council tax rises for everyone. That's where it is at the moment. Now, their investigation unit, which is even more comical, so they have basically a person, they've got a team of 3, right? They had a team of 3 3 years ago. They still have a team of 3 now, right? So they go through the rubbish, right? And if no evidence is found, then they've obviously wasted their man hours, yeah? Now, if there's no evidence found, there's no fines issued. So, you know, the whole thing is just a mess. I mean, even if they did, you know, when they are looking for rubbish, so if you were to walk down the Broadway, all the way up to Western Road, near Hayes, I mean, it'll probably take them 50 years to go through each bag, right? 3 of them. I mean, what's 3 of them going to do, right? So they've just totally, I don't think they know what they're doing. They haven't even pumped up resource to kind of really tackle the ills of the issue. I asked the question about why don't we have cameras at hotspots? Everyone knows where these hotspots are, right? Everyone knows, you know, Western Road, opposite the church, the Common. And I understand I'm on film, and I'll say this for the record. One councillor told me that if they put up cameras, then they have to pay someone to look at that camera. I mean, surely it costs more to collect, right? So the people that we have elected, these are the kind of solutions that they've come up with. Then, obviously, they've come up where, you know, where businesses now, they know the cameras don't work on the street, and that's another area. So they've seen people dump rubbish. So businesses who want to save money are thinking, well, if they're not getting fined, right? You know, we can do the same. We could save a few bob. You know, I think it's about £1,500 a month for a business to have a commercial license. So now, because there's been no enforcement, there's been no resource, they've basically, you know, they've contributed towards the issue themselves. Moving on to how the new proposals work. Again, this is what I've found out in the last few weeks. You know, after talking to my local councillor, he was promising these big proposals. He said, we're going to have some hard-hitting stuff. You know, you don't know about it, just wait. So I thought, okay, let's see what he's got to say. When the proposals first came, they were like, okay, we're going to start, again, going through the rubbish. We're going to start seizing vehicles. And my question was, if people that fly tip rubbish, that fly tip sinks and mattresses and tables, they're not going to leave the name and address on the thing. Otherwise, we would happily send it back to them, right? So the most toughest proposal, and this is like them around the table, that they've come up with, and this is even I thought it was a joke first. So they've voted for this proposal, 12 of them. We don't know who's voted for what because it was a secret. But they've said, okay, we're going to put some magic tape around the fly tip. Now, you know, if that's what you come up with in 18 months, I could have done that myself. You know, if you could imagine, if you're carrying a mattress, right, and you're going to dump it on the street, that's not going to put you off. You know, you're just going to dump it on top of the tape. So this is what we've got in 18 months, yeah? Right? It gets worse. So this is kind of like, again, information that we've collected. These are, the end figure is actually from Ealing Council. So just to kind of go through the figures very quickly, in 2021, I think it was about £600,000 that they were spending annually on collecting rubbish. That's gone up by about £400,000 a year. At the moment, and that's Ealing Council's figure, is actually 3 million. Right? So they're spending 3 million a year on just collecting rubbish. So let's just summarize. So there's no extra resource, there's no strategy, but the cost has more than quadrupled. Right? And obviously with money like that, you know, the savings from that, I know they won't give us a reduction in our council tax, But I'm sure we all rather have that money being spent in our community. Adult training, potholes being fixed, our children's centres being kept open. So there's a lot where what that money can do. Right now, I've obviously emailed them a list of proposals, and these plans are kind of made. I gave them about a year ago. I said, look, obviously, you guys have lost control. But what I'll do is I'll give you some proposals on how you could really tackle the issue, right? So that, we could probably get rid of it in 6 months. And it is an issue that you can get rid of in 6 months, right? So it was about, okay, we need obviously the community involved, because 3 people that you have aren't going to cut it. That's not going to cut nothing. That's not going to cut the mustard. With the community involved, what you need to do is, first of all, make dumping rubbish really easy. Right, so you don't need to book an appointment. You book an appointment with a GP or a dentist. You don't book an appointment to dump rubbish at a dump. Then what you do is you really utilize what you already have. So what do we already have who issue fines? You have traffic wardens that issue fines. So it's about obviously having an online system where someone reports with video evidence. That kind of goes to maybe, the nearest traffic warden that can go. If it's a business, they go in there, they'll issue a fine, and they say, look, you have to pay it, or you have to really argue about it in court, and here's the evidence against you, right? So that's you've got existing resource that can really try and make inroads into the problem, yeah? Then you've got obviously naming and shaming, right? So these, I wouldn't even call them people, I call them creatures. So you've got these creatures who are dumping rubbish. If they are named, if they are shamed, if they are fined, then they will think twice about it, right? And then rewarding good practice. So what I mean by that is, if you are relying on community members to really gather intelligence, take videos during the day, during the night, you almost reward them in a way to say, okay, we're £1,000 better off because of you, here's £200 for your effort, and that encourages more people to do it. And this is the action, by the way, that's taken by other councils, yeah? So you've got councils from Newham who have increased their fines. Brent Council are naming and shaming, and they really crack down hard. I think they fine people up to about £5,000. They've got tech and surveillance in hotspots with vans rotating, so you're not concentrating on just cameras, expensive cameras being installed. These are cameras that you can remove and then deploy in other areas. And then you've got offenders that do community service. So you've got other councils are obviously taking a much tougher approach than you've got obviously what we have, and you've seen the approach they've taken, and then you wonder why there's so much rubbish on our streets. Again, this is just touching on this proposal of how this would work. The first idea, everyone has a camera phone, it goes to a portal or a live reporting system. The resident gets an award of £200 or something along those lines. Local businesses then will want to come forward because they know who's committing the bad practices. They will have evidence of shops or businesses nearby, maybe their neighbours, carrying this out. So it's almost encouraging, rewarding good behaviour. With this, you've got rock solid evidence, you've got faster fines, and you've got good practices that people will follow. So this is just one of our proposals that I've submitted to them. And going on is obviously, installing maybe dash cams and, that are on 24/7, like you have 6 vehicles, you park them at hotspots. Then you gather the evidence, find out who's done it. These are obviously covert cameras in cars, which you can really redeploy. Again, social media would have to be involved in how we highlight what's being done, action being taken, and it's a bit of a more of a efficient way of gathering evidence. Yeah, right. Moving on to my last proposal, again, it has to be community-led. If someone or the community are filming at night, kind of like really gathering intelligence on hotspots, then you've got to reward them. There has to be an easy way of reporting. And then, how you communicate with local people through newsletters. A lot of you probably know that our councillors, they don't have any surgeries. They don't really do much from what I gather. I would actually challenge you all, right? Find out who your local councillor is tomorrow. Find out. Give them a call, right? They probably won't answer your phone. Send them an email. They won't probably even respond to your email. There's only one councillor I know that actually doesn't use that in the Southall ward. The rest don't do it, right? You ask them for a roadmap of when is X, Y, Z going to get sorted out, they haven't got a clue, right? And now I welcome any questions and answers, basically. So basically, if I can't answer your questions, I'll take down your email address, I'll do some research on it, and I'll get back to you. But yeah, feel free.
Who's your counsellor?
Mr. Dinser.
I met Mr. Dinser last night. I was at a full council meeting. And I said to his face, I never speak behind people's back, I say on the face. I said, you're hardly in the country, you're always on holiday. Yeah. That's the truth of your council. That's how I feel about the council.
I'm not going to mention the councillor's name because I want to actually have this conversation with him face to face. And one of the councillors actually just told me 2 days ago, because we invited them to this meeting. We invited them to sign the petition. They refused to sign the petition. And they actually mocked it. They actually said that, almost as a dig, that there's 100,000 people living in Southall, yet you can't even get 2,000 people to sign a petition. Right? It was, and another thing one of them said, again, I'm not going to mention the name because I'm going to say it when I see them face to face, that the reason why they don't increase enforcement officers is because they don't want to get people fined because people have less income. And the most damaging thing, I've been told, is that one of the councillors went around King Street and he or she basically asked them for their commercial waste license. Some of them didn't have it. And he's actually warned them to get their license in 2 weeks because once the enforcement officers move from Broadway, they'll move to King Street, they're going to get fined. So almost he's tipped them off. And because he knows who hasn't got commercial licenses, he's complicit. So he should really be reporting it to the council to say, look, these guys don't, where does the waste go?
He should be sacked.
That's...
If you give us his name, then we'll make a film outside his house.
I'll tell you on Sunday.
Thank you.
I think we gathered who it is.
Yeah.
Queen of Crescent.
I got a funny.
Can't say.
You said you report your incidents to Ealing Council. How are you reporting them? And it's a general question for everyone.
Okay. First things first. They've told me to report it on the app. Now, if I go around reporting every single fly tip on a daily basis, I probably won't have a day job. Yeah? First things first. Secondly, I've been reporting it by email. We have a WhatsApp group set up with the councillors, where every single councillor in the ward is part of that group, and they get reported these images almost on a live basis, and they should be the one that take the action.
So have you asked Ealing Council to, off the Love My Streets app, to give you the data without personal information to get the statistics?
I don't think, from a statistical point of view, I don't think that really kind of matters at this moment. For us, we're looking at improvements, right? So coming back to your question, if I've been reporting it, the answer is that we have councillors who we report it to because we simply don't have the time of collecting, photographing, sending it on an app. Now, if you could imagine, every 20 feet that we walk down, 20 meters we walk down, there's a mattress or a sink or God knows what, I'll be there forever, right? So I can only highlight the problem from my side. The rest of it is up to our councillors to obviously highlight on our behalf. And the reason why they can't do it, I'll tell you why they can't do it, because they've never had to do anything before. So this problem's now come in, right? And they're like, oh, how do we sort it out? They're almost being caught with their pants down, right? To say that, they've lost control is not even losing control. They weren't even in the car in the first place. So it's up to the councillors to raise these issues. They are part of the meetings with Ealing Council. And after months and months of getting it out of them, I was asked the question, so who controls Ealing Council? What is their stakeholder setup? Who does Ealing Council report to? And it was like, your councillors give us direction, and that's how we action any items that come on our agenda. So if you pick people that can't articulate, can't communicate, and can't escalate, then you're just destined for failure.
I mean, personally, I think Deirdre Costigan is starting to pull their strings, because since she's taken over as MP, I am finding that she is getting things into it. I think it's down to her that the 2 cameras have been put up on the Commons, because I had a tip-off that she was in the local rep a few weeks ago, so I went there to meet her, and she did say it was on her agenda. She took pictures of the fly tipping there, and within a few weeks there's 2 cameras gone up there that have gone live. So I do think and as we know, she's spoken in the Commons about it.
Yeah.
So I do think she is trying to get the councillors on board.
I think, sorry to cut you short, but I think she's fighting a losing battle. Compared to what we had before, the MP we had before, I mean, I never even saw him once in the House of Commons.
Who was it?
Vrinda, I think it was...
Can I just ask you something?
Yeah.
You just said, sorry, she's fighting a losing battle.
Who was before that?
Is it a battle we can't win then?
No, it is. I think
It's a losing battle. Is it a battle we can't win?
No, I think, you know what it is? At the...
This is it. It must be we can win.
Yeah.
You can't say we're fighting a losing battle.
No, but what I'm trying to...
We're dead already.
No. What I'm trying to say is, if you basically, if you have the right councils in place that can escalate this issue, then yes, of course, you can make inroads in it. If you elect the wrong people that don't have the skill set in the first place, then it's a losing battle. But what I've just said in one of my proposals is that it has to be community-led. So because they haven't got the resource. They just simply don't have the resource, and I wish they did. I hate it as much as anyone else.
But you know why? Because Southall is a safe seat for Labour. So they don't have to do anything to get re-elected. Unfortunately, they don't have to do any. When do they come knocking on your door?
Oh, just election time, yeah.
That's it.
Sorry.
You were saying about, firstly about the camera thing and the excuse that, if you have a camera, someone will have to monitor it.
Yeah.
That's if you want to catch them in the act, but, what you can actually do with the camera is gather evidence.
Yeah.
So all you need to know is that something's been tipped there, and the next morning have somebody pass forward through it and find the point that it happened. Maybe they'll see a number plate or the vehicle that was used or something like that.
I couldn't agree
and
more.
The other thing, like clean streets. I like your idea of nudges. I do feel like people shouldn't need a nudge to do the right thing, and so reporting stuff on Love Clean Streets. Can I check how many people in the room have got Love Clean Streets installed on their phone? That's okay. Oh, wow, is that everybody? That is okay. I would just encourage people as well to keep reporting these, and the idea that this gentleman here had about FOI the council to find out what's been reported where and how quickly it was dealt with, and start gathering some data to prove as well, because everybody's got the anecdotal evidence that it's happening all the time, so it would be another reason to. I quite like, there used to be a website called Fix My Street where they'd actually send you an email a few days later to say, did the council deal with it, and they publish the statistics of different councils to say who dealt with things in a reasonable time, and that's kind of an independent way of measuring whether or not the council are doing reasonable efforts.
I've written over 25 emails to the councillors and copied in Ealing Council, and Ealing Council are the only ones that have responded. The councillors don't write emails.
Oh, and one more thing about Love Clean Streets, it does tell you whether somebody's reported something where you're about to report, so there's no danger of 2 people reporting the same thing. So I would encourage people to keep reporting it.
Yeah.
Whinge until something's done.
But you know what it is? Where it has that kind of I think my personal opinion is that you really need to install something near hotspots, which is easily deploy. You could deploy easy, maybe in covert car, in cameras in cars or what have you, and then that once you catch people right on the spot, then you kind of find them, and that will kind of send out a positive message. But unfortunately, that hasn't been happening, and the resource, as I said, from enforcement hasn't really. They had 3 last year, and they still got 3 this. Well, 3 few years ago, and they still got 3 people now. What can 3 people do?
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I spoke to one of the wardens, and I collared him next to where the rubbish he was looking at. Yeah? And I asked him, well, what happened to the camera up there? He said they took it down. Why? There's no point having it there. They cover their face, they cover the number plate, so we'll never catch them. How do you expect us to catch them?
I'm not asking.
You're asking for the residents, to film people, be good and get £200. That's not the answer.
All right, okay, all right, okay, okay.
The warden actually said to me, we're raising the fine. What's the point of raising the fine when you're not catching anyone?
Okay, what my proposal is actually a minimal viable plan. So it's actually better than what is proposed by sticking tape around a fly tip. I would rather go with this suggestion than the current suggestion any day of the week. Obviously, we're going to get people who agree or maybe disagree, but what I'm proposing is a raw plan. And once something comes out that is new, then you kind of smoothen out the edges, find out what works and what doesn't work. The current strategy isn't working at the moment, and we can see those results outside.
Some of you may see your faces on the screen. I found them on the internet, so don't worry. I just saw some people's faces drop.
You weren't going around people's houses.
No. It was published in the public space, so I think I'm allowed to do that.
Trying to catch a fire.
No. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rahul Puri. I am a pharmacist from a family-owned independent pharmacy called Puri Pharmacy on Western Road. I may have had the pleasure of meeting some of you people here. I may not have. I've seen some regular faces, but I'm not going to point out your health issues in front of everybody. But this is a comical image of a skeleton. It's there to invoke laughter, but at the same time, this isn't a laughing matter. A lot of the things I'm probably going to say today are things that everyone has already said, things that we know. But I'm here from a viewpoint of being a pharmacist, someone that works in Southall. Our pharmacy has been here for 40 years. My father grew up in Southall, and I see things that you all see. And it's got to the point now where the health issues are so obvious to me as a pharmacist, but they may not be obvious to everyone. There's a lot of issues in Southall and also in Ealing, which we may not think are linked to issues such as fly tipping, such as the burning of tyres, such as chucking bottles on the street. Sometimes we just think, the area's got a lot of diabetes, it's got breathing disorders, but why? There's genetic variations, but we're not going to go into that today. There's other impacts, but there's a lot of things that I see on the street that I can, as a healthcare professional, can attribute to this is why we have such a high volume of people with health disorders. I'm going to propose this information to the ward councillors. I've had some very positive meetings in the last 24 hours with Ealing, I believe with Ealing Council, which links to some of the questions that people had raised. Where our pharmacy is on the corner of Western Road and Belmont Avenue, we've had a significant amount of fly tipping. The council came back to me a couple of months ago saying, look, we can't put any bins for the residents that live above the flats. I didn't get it. I thought they pay their council tax. Why? They actually finally came and saw us yesterday. And this actually includes my tenants that live above our flat. They're great people, but they said to me, Rahul, where do I put my bins? There used to be a bin outside the pharmacy. Someone set it on fire a couple of years ago because they threw a cigarette in there. We don't have a bin. So what happens? People put bin bags. There's a pallet outside the pharmacy for the last 2 weeks, 3 or 4 mattresses. And it's getting to the point, I think, people will just see that corner as where the bin used to be. So it will continue to be the bin. Yesterday, the council came and they said, hold on, you have so much space here. All of the businesses on Western Road in that corner have enough space at the back. Next week, we're going to send somebody to assess the area and put bins there. It will eventually lead to a positive outcome. And I think you just have to have the energy, which everyone does have. You're here in an evening, spending time here. They will listen. And I think if we can share perhaps the contacts which have led us to a positive outcome, it may feel a lot better for us and also allow us to get to the correct endpoints rather than emailing people who aren't emailing us back. I emailed a counsellor who I said, look, can you let me know the information about how many fines were given out in the road that I report every day, which again is Western Road and Belmont Avenue. He said, I don't have that information. And I thought, but why? You are the individual. If you don't have that, then who will? So my next step is to do a freedom of information request. I didn't even think about that, but thank you to whoever suggested that. Because if that individual isn't going to give it to me, I will go out and do it myself. Because what I am fed up with is seeing the pavements blocked, urine, feces, vomit, food on the corner of where the pharmacy is. People can't access the pharmacy. Even if it's on the other side, it's an eyesore, it's a health issue. And it's getting to the point now where I've just had enough. I probably spend more of my time outside of my pharmacy now and more time doing things like this to stop people. The amount of mattresses I've had to pick up to allow people to get into the pharmacy, it gets to the point where I'm shocked. And I have conversations with the gentleman and one of the ladies who clean the streets. And I say, look, I'm so sorry, because it must be heartbreaking for you to come every day to tidy up with a litter picker and a bin, but you're not being employed to pick up a soiled mattress. And the risks that could be upon that individual for their own health is through the roof, as it is for everyone else that is here. I'm probably going to skip through some slides if things have been already repeated. But that is me. My name is Rahul. I'm a pharmacist. I will move on. So the key things I want to talk about, which a lot of the information that I've got, I just wanted to make sure it's all vetted and proper and accurate information. So everything that I've tried to pull together has either been from Ealing Council's website, news reports, public health information, to just try and make it as accurate and as factual as possible. Having said that, it's quite interesting because it's actually very, very hard to find a lot of the public health information specific relating to fly tipping. But I'm going to try and piece things together to see really what the links are of what we know. And I do apologise if some of this information is just really obvious. But to some people out there, it isn't obvious. And I hope when I send this to the councillors, that they will take this as a really important matter. And I'm going to be speaking to the local GP surgeries that we know on a really good personal basis to try and employ them to really work all together, because without working together, we're as good as nothing, right? So we've got to work together. Exactly. So as of last year, there's been an increase in fly tipping of 73%. I think this could have been a statistic from 2024, 2025, but it's remarkable. An increase in 73%. But this shows that people are reporting, because otherwise without that, we wouldn't get this information. I don't know about you, but it seems like as of right now, this is at the tipping point. A few months ago, I thought, okay, it's pretty bad, but it's suddenly got even worse. And I think us all meeting today is a great opportunity to really leave here and be even more determined and really more fired up to try and resolve these issues. Couple of familiar faces here whose quotes are here, and I'm not going to read them out, but they are very telling and emotional quotes that I've read that have been on BBC News, I believe, on people's TikToks talking about particular issues. And these are just two quotes that I found, but the amount of people that I've spoken to on the streets, people saying to me outside the pharmacy, what's going on here? People outside Featherstone Road Health Centre, outside a GP surgery. There's enough fly tipping to build a 5-bed apartment. I think there's about 3 mattresses outside Puri Pharmacy at the moment. It's horrible at the moment, and it's impacting people who are disabled, abled, and it's getting to the point now where I'm really glad people have spoken out, because if people aren't speaking about it, it won't go to the national news, it won't go to the local news. So I will really promote to people, please just talk about it. You may feel that there is a losing battle, but it really isn't. In my opinion, this is sort of the start of it. Like I said, you guys are all here on an evening. You wouldn't be here if you weren't sort of fired up about this and want to make a change. So, some of the local and national trends. So Ealing Council or Ealing Public Health publish a public health report every year. The 2025 data hasn't come out just yet, but it basically looks at all aspects of Ealing Council. So I've just tried to pull together some of the key facts that are impacting Ealing as a whole, and in particular some health information about Southall as well. So Ealing Borough has the 5th highest rates of new TB cases in the whole of England. This is directly related to, well, TB is more prevalent in those who are of an African or South Asian heritage. So a lot of people that have either gone on holiday to Africa, India, Bangladesh or South Asia will either contract it there, bring it back here. TB generally is spread through spit, saliva, coughing, through those means, or those who have come from Africa and India have started to live here. The rise of people living in properties where there's loads of them, the HMOs, is that the correct term? I don't know if you've seen lots of people spitting on the streets. It's getting to the point where this is causing a considerable issue. So people will be spitting. Exactly. Although that's not directly related to fly tipping, I generally don't like to stereotype, but you have the similar people who are spitting on the streets, maybe the similar ones who are fly tipping, chucking things on the floor, leaving things out there. But these are all health issues which will just magnify and you have an almost snowball effect. 1 in 10 people in Ealing have diabetes. If you're of a Bengali origin, it's 1 in 5. Again, those who are diabetic, higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease, higher risk of developing an inability to sort of heal skin infections. Ealing has double the amount of people threatened with homelessness versus the London average. So living conditions are poor, or there is a higher amount of homelessness as well. And Ealing Council, obviously Southall is built into different wards and regions. So Southall Green, Southall Park and Southall North are in the top 3 of the whole of Ealing for cardiovascular disease. So we are in a health ticking time bomb. On top of that, we are in an environmental ticking time bomb. Put those two together, I'm sure you guys have all seen the film Oppenheimer, it doesn't lead into a good result. This is a horrible situation to be in, but one which I firmly believe we can not fix in its entirety, but try and reverse it as aggressively as possible. There's a lot more stats, but I'd rather not go into all of them because I'll be here till tomorrow evening. You've all seen it. These are images that I took, I think, last week. I'm not sure if you can see it too clearly, but that is Featherstone Road car park. That is leaving Featherstone Road car park on the way out, and I believe that is also on the opposite side of Featherstone Road car park. I often park there and I go to the pharmacy. I could have taken about 50 to 60 images. A lot of this is mattresses that are soiled, feces on the street. I've visibly seen people relieve themselves on the street. Bottles, food, all of this will attribute to an increase in vermin, rodents, rats, which have diseases. We breathe in these issues. These issues that we breathe in then lead to diseases that we can develop. Add on top of the fact that you have a high volume of people with cardiovascular disease, those with diabetes, those with tuberculosis. It has a massive knock-on effect. I don't want to scare you individuals. Some of you may be fit and healthy right now, but you are not aware of the issues that you are breathing in at the moment. There's a lot of information out there about the use of inhalers in Southall. I've got a stat later showing that the amount of people, and I think this was published by Clean Air for Southall and Hayes, saying that the amount of people who are now using inhalers and suddenly developing asthma over time has gone through the roof. Why is this? Could be because of the building work, because of poisonous gases, very likely. Could also be because, again, rats and rodents release chemicals when they die, disintegrate. We breathe this in. Our bodies can only take so much, and that leads to individuals developing sort of cases of asthma. I actually have a wheeze at the moment, and I've only developed a wheeze over the last couple of years since working aggressively in Southall. I can't link it directly, but my health, in a way, and a lot of my staff members' health has also deteriorated because of issues around in the local area. Massive cost to the community. Suki was great in summarising everything, so I'm not going to go through it again. I think Ealing Council estimates about over £500,000 is spent annually on clearing up fly tips in Southall alone. I actually emailed our local MP, Deirdre, and she was great in giving me statistics. She was almost embarrassed to say that Ealing has such a big budget to do great things with, but a large proportion of the money is being spent in tidying up Southall. And what I could find is when someone was trying to summarise it online for a great forum, they were saying, the money that could be spent could sort out the social care issues, community services in Southall, which to me seem like they're closing every month, every year, every week. We could be planting trees. We could be providing libraries for books in the libraries for our children. The amount of money that is being almost wasted because we're having to do more work in Southall is quite frightening. This is a beautiful town, it's a great town, and if money was put in the correct areas, we could really flourish even more. Okay, so these are the physical health impacts. I'll try and read it as quickly as I can. Oops, how do I zoom in, Suki? Just there? All right. So hopefully we can read that. If not, essentially the key things about the physical health impacts that are going to impact all of us and that are impacting individuals at the moment is leaving stuff on the street, whether it be rubbish, food, urine matter, toilet matter, mattresses. These are the perfect environment for rats, rodents and vermins. The reason we don't want them in our house is because they're horrible. We don't want them. They are disease-bearing individuals. Statistics actually show that a pair of rats nesting in an abandoned sofa, which I'm sure loads of us have seen, can multiply into over 1,000 rats in 1 year, which can increase the risk of diseases such as hantavirus, rat bite virus or meningitis. I'm not sure if you are all familiar with hantavirus, but in the news a few months ago, I think Gene Hackman's wife, who passed away, rodents had sort of been eaten away at her without being too morbid. She died of hantavirus. So rats and rodents will feed on individuals, or they are, unfortunately, they're vermin. So the risk of it, I'm not sure if you've ever been acquainted with a dying rodent under the floorboards, the smell that it produces. When you breathe that in, it's not great for your body. We've seen plenty of rats and rodents outside the pharmacy because people have left bins of food. We can't do much about it, but now these animals and creatures are smart enough to know that these are the hotspots for them. Until you get rid of that, we are going to really, really struggle. Biohazards. The amount of sort of illegally dumped items such as broken glass, medical or biological waste can increase not only the risk of injury to individuals. I've seen, unfortunately, used hypodermic needles in Featherstone Road car park. Obviously, this is attributed to the massive use of illicit drugs in the area, but these are all biological risks for individuals. People are walking around, they may get a needle stick injury, therefore increasing the risk of diseases such as HIV or hepatitis. A lot of fly tips include chemicals such as asbestos, a lot of it from the constructions that's going on. I would always promote to people, if you see building work happening, call things out. We are only as good as the individuals when we call things out together. This is a very brief slide just about the environmental health impacts, but it directly impacts our physical health as well. We see a lot of fly tipping that happens sort of, for example, in the rivers or also on the grass or in public areas. Toxins can be leached into our environment. It goes into the water, it goes into our water source. We are simply ingesting and breathing in all of the negative things there. Anything that is left out there, I see it as a potential risk. I'm not sure how many of you are still happy to drink tap water in the local area or have fears about it, but a lot of people are terrified about it because we see what's on the street, we worry about it going into our water supply. And here is the statistic. I knew I had it here. So, So this was published, I think, by Ealing Council, not Ealing Council, Public Health, who basically said that Southall has 23% of London's top 30 GP practices for asthma treatment. That's a huge number of individuals that have been diagnosed with asthma, a condition which not a lot of the UK public, if you look at it on a wider scale, have. It is relatively common, but we're talking about Southall, which has a lot of GP surgeries, a lot of pharmacies, there's a lot of data there, a lot of people are struggling with breathing disorders, some of those who have no idea how they've suddenly developed it. A lot of it is attributed likely to nitrous oxide chemicals that have been sort of released in the building works. I think there's some really good data and evidence that was published by Imperial College, I think. I don't know who worked on that. Yeah. Some people here, yeah, from the gasworks, but also from, rodents and vermins that people are breathing it in. Unfortunately, I've been in the situation where we've had a rodent that we got removed with our pest control because there was an issue with the building next door to us. You could smell it, and for like 3 weeks, our staff had to wear masks because you were almost suffocating with the smell of a dying rodent. And it was on and on. And the only way we stopped this is when we realised that people were just chucking food out on the street, and we had to call it out. And the massive mental health aspect. Arti, you spoke really eloquently about the mental health aspects. Going out in Southall now should feel amazing. It should feel you should be proud in your town. I am still proud in this town, and I believe this town is a beautiful place. But going out on the street sometimes fills me with stress and anxiety, more because I look around and I think, oh, it was tidy yesterday. Why is that there? Why am I tiptoeing around this? Why are there 50 bottles of Jameson on the street after a night out? And that creates almost the stress and anxiety in our mind, low-level stress that eventually keeps going and going. And I believe when it becomes the norm for you, that's when in my mind I think, no, I need to shake that. It shouldn't be like this. And for those who struggle with already anxiety, it can feel extremely isolating. You do not want to go out in the street because how are you going to get from A to B? You don't want to go somewhere. You don't want to tell your mates to come. Or come to the Prince of Wales, or come to the Scotsman, or come to Brilliant Restaurant. You wouldn't now because you think, oh God, like, this is my town. I want to, show off the great things about my town. But now we feel I don't want to. And those sort of negative mental health impacts are telling. Sometimes they often creep up on you. You don't realize you have those effects going on in your life. And that can lead to a massive level of depression and hopelessness. These are a couple of quotes that came from the, I think, Let's Go Southall, who basically just said, people, they feel like they're tired of being ignored by the council. Other areas in Ealing look beautiful and clean. Don't get me wrong, they have their issues as well, but why does it appear that Southall is, the hotspot for it? That was a, disregard that last bit there. And children and child development, being able to go out with children and having them play in parks almost seems like, I don't have children at the moment, but I know of individuals that do, and they feel that they can't just go have a kickabout with their kids or play cricket in the park because they're worried about those needle stick injuries. They're worried about the rubbish on the street. Not everyone has access to a garden, so children should be able to, and even adults should be able to go out in the public and enjoy themselves and have fresh air. And it massively impacts the cognitive development of a child, or even adults not being able to be out there. I'm not sure if you all remember the times during COVID when we were all staying indoors. It really takes its toll on you. And not being able to go outside will have long-term effects on individuals. Some stuff that we aren't even aware of until a few years down the line when you realise, that almost social isolation and seclusion can have such a knock-on effect on your health. So, all of this information has come directly from Ealing, whether it be news articles that I've tried to just summarise. Fly tipping is up nationally as it is anyway. Ealing recorded over 12,000 incidents in a recent year, and we spend about over 3 million annually on clearing up rubbish. £3 million can go a long way. Heck, £300,000 can go a long way. Even 30 quid could go a long way. The fact that we're having to spend so much time, money and energy on tidying up the streets when we've got potholes, we've got centres for children being closed, we don't have facilities for people to be social. The physical, mental, environmental health impacts are all linked to everything that we see on the streets. And I'm more than happy to discuss with people and almost work with individuals if they want to, and you can ask me to go speak to your GP surgeries if you want to try and get them on board in all aspects of discussing with our counsellors, or even to the highest levels, or even to the media. So this is just a snippet. I'm not a public health guru or anything. This is just talking from my experience as a healthcare professional. If you have any questions, please ask. If I don't know the answer, I do apologise, but I can try and get it back to you. If anyone is here from the healthcare world, give me a shout as well. If there's any questions, just let me know. That's me.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, I was ignorant about the diseases from rats and decaying rats, inhaling all the chemicals that they give off. I remember in terms of, like, you talked about children, walking down the common with my daughter when she was about 3. And if you know that road, and it was a lot of broken glass, she ran ahead and she fell. And she struck her head, shoulder and knee. And I didn't see, apart from head injury, the other injury underneath her clothes until I got home. And I decided from that point onwards not to actually go down the common. I'd find an alternative route. But the mental health aspect, I do feel like on the weekend I should be able to go out for a walk, but the rubbish puts me off. I just stay at home. I can't be bothered, because as soon as I turn out of the road where I live, You know, there's rubbish on the corner, then I walk down the road, another pile, and then I think, oh, it'd be nice to go to the wreck. The wreck is full of broken glass, double glazing units, sofas, mattresses, you name it. Yeah, so thank you very much, appreciate it. Any questions for me?
Sorry, just a quick one. I've heard a lot about peri pharmacy. For example, when calling 111, they say that you guys are open till late to see whether medication can be collected from there. Has the fly tipping and it related to rodents and the issues that it's caused decreased the amount of patients or people that come to Puri Pharmacy?
We've had a lot of people who have complained. Initially people said, oh, why are you leaving rubbish outside on your street? It's not us, but it's directly outside. We used to have the public bins. We have had some people say, look, I don't want to come to this side of Southall anymore because it's messy. Not directly related to that corner, but just generally as a feel. And we've had some people, you have to explain to them, you know, look, we're not fly tipping, we're trying to do something. When people have said to us, look, we don't want to come here, I say, look, I wouldn't want to come here if you have to navigate through, you know, broken glass, a mattress on the street. And I say, look, download the app, report it.
Yeah.
And look, we're very fortunate that we've got a good reputation as a healthcare organisation. The accessibility needs is what kind of heartbreaks me when people can't get to us, because we want to create an environment in our healthcare organisation that anyone can come and feel like they can access healthcare. We're directly across the road from Belmont Medical Centre near Featherstone Road, so we want to create that access for people. So it's been heartbreaking for us when people aren't happy to come because they're worried about how they're going to get there. And that's what I've really explained to the councillors. You know, it's impacting not only our business, but it's impacting the region, and people shouldn't feel like they can't go from the GP surgery to us because there's a mattress in the way or there's glass in the way. And I hope now that more people will report it when they see it. And for those who are reporting, please continue to do so, because the more that reporting, I'm a firm believer that the more we report, the more we talk about certain things, it will lead to it. Look, I believe in probability and the law of averages. The more we do something, the more we're going to have a positive outcome from it.
Can I just interrupt? Diana Ryan is here for Nita Patel. Is there a Nita Patel in the room? No Nita Patel. Sorry.
That's all right. I'll ring it through.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you once again. So the final speaker is Joe Bangu. So would you like to come to the front, Joe? Who's got the mic? All right.
Good evening to everybody, and thank you for taking your time out to attend this meeting. Would anybody like to put their hand up who've met their councillors at a ward forum or a local meeting? Anybody? 2 people. Where did you meet them, sir?
There's an important question you've missed out of there.
No.
When did I last meet them?
No, that's what I mean. Where did you meet them? Because I haven't met them since 2019. So I really wanted to know, because I believe they tell some people, they don't tell everybody. And they might have the answer for us. So, Paddy, where did you meet them?
The last time I met them was at Jubilee Gardens.
The health centre?
Yes. That was pre-COVID.
Same thing.
That's an important question.
Same thing. Thank you. Thank you. So when we've got our representatives, they're supposed to be representing us. I've lived in Southall since 1965. And I'm ashamed of them. I was at a meeting yesterday at Ealing Town Hall, and it was a full council meeting. And their behaviour, when people are asking serious questions and they're too busy having a chat, a laugh with the councillor sitting next to them, and majority of them, even the ones sitting in front of us, are playing with their telephone. Is this what it's come to? Our democracy, our rights, our worries, our concerns. They're not their concerns. As far as they're concerned, the 10,000 or whatever funding that they get per year, that's all they're interested in. They're only interested in money.
Yeah.
Southall, I'm ashamed to say, has become a vote bank. All our churches, our gurdwara, our mosques, that's all they are. They're vote banks. There's people who are controlling Southall who do not even live in Southall. If you go out, I go to parties of nice places. Joe, you still live in Southall? I said, yes. I love Southall. That's all I know is Southall. So they come to Southall and they want to teach us how to live. I went to a council meeting a couple of weeks ago and they said, Mr. Bangu, the religious organization. I said, don't speak to me about religious organizations. They're not there for me. They're not there for my children. They're not there for my neighbors. They're there for themselves. So please, let's get rid of this. Because this is how politics is done abroad, in India. When our predecessors came here, our two last MPs in Southall, they were mature when they came from India. And they brought the same Indian mentality, unfortunately, to our Southall. Tell one group something, tell the other group something else, and control the lot of them. And that's what's been happening. The reason why we are disliked is we ask the right questions. Even Ealing Council, they've never had this. They can't answer our questions because it baffles them of who the heck are you asking us this question? Well, we're the ratepayers. We're the residents of Southall. We belong here. The people who come to Southall to use and abuse the public or the residents, they don't belong here. That's one of my disagreements. Because the council sucks up to them rather than to suck up to the residents. We, the people, who vote in these useless, absolute useless councillors. How can you not worry? The state of Southall today is disgusting, is the word. Disgusting. I'm ashamed of people coming to my house. I live on Beaconsfield Road. And right opposite on the corner of Townsend Road is a dump. I know where it comes from. And the council know where it comes from. And Brother Rahul just answered the question. Rahul said that he's got flats above his shop. Question for you, Rahul, please. How long has Dad had that shop? 40 odd years?
42 years now.
42 years, son. So the upstairs flat has been rented for the majority of that time? Okay. And you had a meeting with Ealing Council? Yesterday. After 42 years, Ealing Council have just woken up. Where are these guys putting their dustbins? Well, that's my argument. The reason why Ealing Council is not interested in doing anything is because they're to blame. It's Ealing Council who are to blame for the state of Southall and anywhere else. Acton's got the same problem. Northall's got the same problem. Greenford, the 7 towns that make London Borough of Ealing. They're all suffering. And this is how they're suffering. Ealing Council sells or issues HMO licenses. Does everybody understand that? Yeah. So they get a fee from the landlord. Once they take the money, they're on the run, because now they've got to find a way of spending this money. You see, I've been in business. You cannot write a personal check to yourself if you work in the council. Okay? You've got to issue a big contract to somebody. Okay? That's how the system works. I'm sorry. Okay? But that's how the system works. Them spending £3.5 million a year to collect the rubbish, it means nothing. Ealing Council's got plenty of money because we're always told lies by our councillors. One tried it with me last night. Mr. Bangu, the councillor's very poor. I said, please stop this nonsense. Ealing Council is probably the 3rd or the 4th richest council in the United Kingdom. Did you know that? It's got so much money, wealth, that we create through our council tax and our fines, where they actually go to other councils and rent them our money. There was a program by Panorama. Ealing Council were giving our money to other councils. So if I'm poor and I've got no money, how can I rent or let other people loan my money? I can't. Because I won't have no money to buy food if I'm poor. They have fallen into a trap. And we are their awakening, basically. That's what's going on at the moment. When somebody here today, I think it was Jan, she said the local MP went to House of Parliament. She only went to House of Parliament because Channel 5 told them on Tuesday, I believe the 29th of April, that we're interviewing Mr. Bangu on the 30th. So they said, oh, how can we now sort things out where we look better than Mr. Bangu? So she runs to Parliament, gets an emergency debate on a Wednesday. Peter Mason is on the Broadway, on one of the streets off my road, Western Road. He's talking to ITV. It's damage control, that's all it is, nothing else. There is a camera outside Tudor Rose, opposite Osley Park Road. When the reporter said to me, Mr. Bangu, there's a new law coming out, £5,000 fine, 5 years in prison, that's laughable. There's already I have 2 nephews who are prison officers. There's too many prisoners already, okay? They said things will change, they get better. I says, no, that law is not worth the paper it's written on. Because if you look behind you, there's cameras there. So why do we have all this rubbish on the green? Because the council don't care. All the council are interested in is the money. HMOs are the people who are causing our life to be a misery. We have proof. Next to my house, the second house from my house, me and Raymond were outside, we saw a cooker outside that house. So we knocked on the door, lady opened the door, I said, do you realise that this is a £5,000 fine? She says, oh, Mr. Bangu, the builders, they've done the work and they put it there. I said, it doesn't matter. The council are going to come for you because you're registered at this address. So I suggest you pick it back up and put it inside the garden. So at the end of the day, it's the council who've made our lives a misery, and all they're doing is collecting in the wealth. Ealing Council is a cash machine. That's all it is. It's a business. It's not there for the community. Do you ever see when they don't get a pay rise? So they must be doing nicely. Everybody's on a good wager. I think it was last time I said to Angela, we should find out, do an FOI on the wages of how much money are people, a director of a department, what sort of money is he on? So get this out of your heads that we live in a poor council area. No, our council is very rich, but Southall is very poor. Out of the 7 towns that make the London Borough of Ealing, Southall is the most deprived and the poorest in the borough. And I don't even think our councillors know this, because the councillor that we were talking about spends more time in India. That's what our last MP did. Mr. Sharma was always in India, you know, having their lavish holidays. So no, since we've started talking, they're worried. And I like that, okay? Because we have to stand up for ourselves. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
For being direct and honest. And
Oh, sorry.
so it doesn't take much really to do research to find out how much money all the housing developments that you see, all the high roads going up around the station and on the Broadway, these developers have to pay community infrastructure. Thank you. Levy, right? That's bringing millions into Southall. Except it's not being spent on Southall, according to Councillor Dinser. He said it goes into a central pot. And when you look at the areas outside of where the high-rises are and outside of the gasworks, it's grim, it's depressing, it's dirty. I sometimes feel I have to escape and go somewhere like Sunbury in Middlesex, which is comparatively clean and green and lush. Speaking of money, and I don't have the time to do a deep dive, but this relates to Section 106 funding that Berkeley Group, who are developing the gasworks development, paid. Some of that money is actually being allocated for a private swimming pool, not a swimming pool for the community, but just for the private owners only. And I'm just shocked by that. And there's probably more of that going on, but I personally don't have the time to look into, the detail. And I personally think myself there has to be change. The councillors that we have, as far as I'm concerned, really don't care. I spoke to Councillor Dinser this morning. I said, Councillor Dinser, I went to the council meeting, and on the way back, there were numerous fly tips on South Road and the Broadway. I also told him about the cars without registration plates on Johnson Street. And I said, look, it's not really fair that the Children's Centre, Greenfields Children's Centre, is closing. Southall Green is probably the poorest ward in the entire borough. We have serious deprivation. Yeah, that is the centre that has the greatest reach and the most number of families using services. So I said, well, I don't agree with any of the children's centres being closed, but I don't get why Dormers Wells has received a reprieve, okay? And I said, generally speaking, when I drive over to Dormers Wells to go to Dormers Wells Leisure Centre, that area seems to be, just looking at the houses, more affluent. And then he went off on a tangent because I said, I used to take my daughter to karate lessons. And that's all he wanted to talk about. What were the karate lessons like? I've got my granddaughter in the car here. And I'm just, I thought to myself, you're not taking me seriously. I don't mind having a social conversation, but at the same time, you are not doing anything about the issues that are seriously affecting residents in this area. Fly tipping is just the tip of the iceberg, yeah? So, we've got the closure of the children's centres, CPZs. It seems sometimes almost lawless. And as far as I'm concerned, Labour don't want to do anything, and it's not intended to be a party political broadcast. They don't want to upset their friends in business, right? Because when I spoke to Councillor Dinser on another occasion, she said, it's not really a good idea to sort of like publicise the culprits. I said, that's the only way. You have to name and shame their photographs, their address, in the same way that other councils are doing so. Barking and Dagenham, they've got a YouTube channel, and they publicise the photographs of the fly tippers, and some of the images really clear. It's a bit like Crime Stoppers, yeah? Sorry, Crime Watch, yeah? So, what Ealing Council are doing, this notion of, we'll stick a few bits of yellow tape and that's going to prevent people from fly tipping. No, it's not. As I said earlier, I walked past all the usual fly tips in Southall Green. Just to add, they were all invited to this meeting and not one had the courtesy to actually RSVP the invitation. So I'm conscious of the time, but does anybody want to make any points before we close the meeting?
Out of all of this, what do you think is the cause of all these mattresses being planted?
I would say HMOs.
I think
HMOs.
The population of South has gone up.
Mm-hmm.
You said 1 million immigrants have come. The majority of them are in Southall. You can't walk on the street. I don't know where they live. I see them going down my street on the pavement. It's only Brent Road. That's it. Southall is finished. You know, many streets like Lady Margaret Road, with the abundance of houses, the terrace places. Now you say HMO exists. They made the law that all those houses that are rented out, multiple occupants, they have to be registered. Now I know on my street there are few houses, the people living there, rented out, a lot of people living there, but when I go on the register, landlord register, they're not there, they're not registered.
Yeah, there's
So
plenty
are
of
they gonna
unlicensed
just
HMOs, I
bring
agree.
out these laws? Are they going to really check on who's living where?
I think one of the issues is that when people report, there's the fear that their name will be disclosed. And somebody said that to me. They said, I reported an HMO and Virendra Sharma knew about it. You know, if that's the way that the council treats information and it lacks confidentiality, who is going to report? Yeah? There are so many HMOs. You just have to go on Next Door Neighbours to see how many rooms for girls to share, boys to share, couples, garages, box rooms, yeah? And, you know, I saw a photograph of one room, it was just a double room, and there were 3 single beds in this room. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, tenants, both tenants and landlords. And people thinking, oh, great. According to Councillor Dinser, and I thought I misheard, I hope I didn't mishear, 30,000 students have come from India to Southall since COVID restrictions were lifted, yeah? And I remember Joe, I'm going to use Joe as an example, he talked about 2 young boys, they left a house with a blue bag and they dumped it by a tree, and you said, son, why are you putting that bag there? And the response was, Auntie won't let us put it in the bin. You know, how many other people have the same response? They're not allowed to put the rubbish in the wheelie bin because it's not a registered HMO and there are insufficient bins.
No,
I'm not blaming the students.
I believe Auntie's on social security. That's why she doesn't allow them to use it.
Possibly. This is not an attack on the students, yeah? I understand coming here to better one's life and to get qualifications. My issue are the greedy landlords exploiting these students, yeah? And not just in housing, also in the workplace. Somebody said, I know someone who's come from India, they're on £4 an hour working in a restaurant. It's just absolutely extreme.
I've lived in the same house in Southall all my entire life, only about 10 years, but no. But I see it in my little road. I'm in the cul-de-sac, yeah? We have a guy who's a builder, and he's telling all the people in the road, build this extension on the side of your house, have it separate, have it as like an annex. So what he does is he puts the plans in with a window. The council come along, take a picture of the window, it's an annex for someone to live in. When the council have gone, he walks the window out and he puts a door there.
Yeah.
So,
Or it's a gym, you know?
Within a few weeks, you'll see a family living in this little extension on the side of the
Oh,
house.
it's extreme, you know. I would even say there's a counsellor and she used to have a food shop, and round the back of the food shop there's an outhouse, and I was delivering leaflets and the door was open and there was a family living in there. They had a nice marble floor, but other than that it was all in one. You know, is that legitimate? You know, has planning given consent to people actually living in an outhouse? And it's not just that property, it's other properties on the same road. Scott's Road is quite a long road. But moving forward, I intend for this recording to be shared with all the councillors and Councillor Driscoll, who's in charge of waste management and street care, and the MP Deirdre Costigan, and also short clips, because I think most of us are not fooled by the yellow tape approach. You know, they tried the sandwich boards, which are now so grubby, nobody can read them. And it just adds to the sort of the neglect of the pavements. I'm with Artie. Artie said, I will go to the town hall and I will hold a protest there. I'm with her on that, and I hope others will join if we have to go down that road. The next step moving forward is the petition. If you haven't signed it, please sign it. I've got some leaflets which have the QR code. The plan is, once kind of like the summer break is out of the way, is to actually get that presented to the council, and hopefully it's enough signatures for a full council debate, not just the Labour majority debate, yeah? Because we have to keep the pressure on. And I think we have to show in the run-up to May 2026 that we're not going anywhere. Okay, they turned up in Park Avenue, Goodwara, and I'm not sure which Mandy, but Amanda as well, for a photo op. But the same weekend on the Saturday, they were in West Ealing and Hanwell. I didn't see them in a church, I didn't see them in a Gurdwara, I didn't see them in a mosque. They're on the pavements having their photographs taken. And the reason why they're not going to have their photographs taken in Southall, where are they going to find where there's no fly tip as a backdrop? Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, we have to keep that pressure on and get our neighbours, our friends to think, is it the right thing just to vote for these councillors over and over again who really don't do very much? And what I would suggest, as Joe has done, go to a full council meeting. If you like watching people, watch their body language, you know, muttering to their colleague next to them, checking their phone, asking the question, but the diction is so poor, I don't know if anybody could understand the question, just about. But we need a fresh set of councillors, I'm afraid. That's what I think. Joe, take on Peter Mason. You know, he doesn't do anything in Southall. I think you would stand a credible chance, yeah? Because we actually talk to people. The gentleman at the back, right? I don't think he's here now. But I just talked to him, because one day he was on Dudley Road and he was talking to his neighbours about the fly tipping. And I just went across, I was nosy, because he had a litter picker. So I think if we can carry on joining together and just challenging and pushing back, yeah? And actually challenging where we think their initiatives are not working.
I think you know where I live, definitely. And you've seen our open garden. Now, people have obviously fly tipped. We had, that much of rubbish, I could say. Over the time, for us to be able to then empty that rubbish and stuff, it now looks like a fly tipping area.
Yeah,
And
people
I'm
just
sure
add to it.
someone must have taken, I'm sure, 100% sure, that picture could be put anywhere. Now, I heard, I can't say from who, but that they've seen people put rubbish in there. So they're taking a small buggy, empty buggy, there's a bag in there, and the lady puts a bag in there and...
Yeah, people add to it. Yeah.
So now we've obviously had going to need to get Skip to empty that, but the fly tip's just going to get worse. School kids are throwing their food rubbishes in there, and no matter how much you talk to them about, you can use our bins, just put it in the bin. It doesn't make a difference. And now we're going to have to pay for labour, people to actually do it, because we can't physically put the rubbish in the skip. And it's going to cost us £700 to £800.
Yeah, it's just not fair. But we need a culture from the council. No nonsense. Start publicising names, addresses, like that guy was on BBC London News with his sofa. You know, that is going to potentially affect him in other aspects of his life. You know, who wants to hang around with somebody who's basically a criminal? Yeah.
Saying you need to keep your area clean because it's not nice for a reputation and you know all the clearance of the area. And I'm like, that's not our fault.
I know, it's been a major problem, but I think we have to keep challenging the councillors, not accepting what they tell us, like we're thick, we're stupid, we're uneducated. For instance, Councillor Anand, this was at the Southall Green Safer Neighbourhood team meeting, which is a joint one with Norwood Green. The chair said, why don't you do a leaflet? And she said, oh, well, you know, I speak to the faith groups and language is an issue, right? We all speak English here. I saw elderly men, Sikh men on the bus, and you've got a blue box at the front with the metro. They're all picking up the metro and reading it on the bus. So it's nonsense. I'm not saying that we don't have language issues, but that is really, for me, an excuse to do nothing. I said to Councillor Dinser, I would have liked a newsletter telling me about all the roadworks that are happening that caused a massive disruption to me getting to Ealing yesterday. So yeah, I think it's a good thing we've all come together tonight, yeah? And I think this is a massive improvement. We had a generic meeting on crime back in, was it February, something like that? March, sorry. And I think there was only 6 of us who turned up. So, you know, this is something that is really sort of empowering people. You know, enough is enough. And we're not going to accept that they're not doing anything. And basically call them out. You know, so what if you lose a friend and you're not going to be able to put your poster in their business window? Yeah? Or you're not going to get donations from them. I couldn't give 2 hoots. Get on, right? Stop having this influence on the council officers, right? Have pride in the area and be saying to them, this is not good enough, yeah? But anyway, I think I'm going to close the meeting because I'm conscious we need to pack up. But thank you for coming. And obviously you'll see, you know, we still post on social media, so keep up to date with us. But I think the next event, if you like, is, and I would encourage you to support Patrick when he presents the petition to the council. Obviously, I will circulate that because it shouldn't just be, you know, me and other people, Joe, sorry, I'm losing my mind, and Ray. You know, we need to fill the council gallery with as many people as possible from Southall, because I think the attitude is, oh, they don't matter. You know, they're not interested. We can do the hell what we like. And no, it's got to stop. But thank you for coming. Thank you for giving up your Wednesday evening.